Hey, welcome back to another episode of Go FUD Yourself. JD Gagnon here, my good friend Kara. What's up?
Hi. We have so much sort of good news today. News that feels good in headline, but maybe isn't good once we scrape back the surface.
Oh boy. Okay, what are we talking about?
Okay, first of all, we're going to talk about summer because tomorrow's the first day of summer, which is very exciting for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere who don't experience the sun. So that we're going to talk about that. We have to talk about MasterCard. They just announced today that they're going after some trademarks on blockchain. It's a big deal. We have to talk about Do Kwon. I can't get around it. And then we're going to talk about a couple of lighter things like the Canadian Bitcoin conference. But we're probably also going to get into the crypto.com scrutiny that's going on right now, which is kind of a big deal. And then if we have time, we'll continue with CBDCs. But those might get pushed to tomorrow because that in itself I'll talk about for a whole episode. So let's see.
All right. Quick shout out to Persistence.
I like that shirt.
I like the shirt a lot, actually. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Integrity, humility, persistence. Pretty good values, I think. Good. They're a liquid staking platform, I believe, on Cosmos. And they do a lot of interesting stuff as a Cosmos zone. So definitely worth checking out. Also, for everybody that's listening, we're a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 Eastern. You know it's live because we say dumb shit and you get to see it. So we're a live show. We also have replays everywhere. We do a lot of YouTube shorts and all that stuff, but it's very rarely cut other than chunks. So we don't do a lot of editing, even in the replays. It just goes out and away we go. So share, like, subscribe, help us out, and let's get going. Maybe. All right. For some reason, I can't get this thing to connect to my headset.
Weird.
But I can't get it to connect to my headset. You're probably going to get some background noise from me. Hopefully,
I'll live with it.
Yeah, hopefully it works out. I don't know why, but we'll just roll with it. Anyways, okay. Right. Where do you want to start?
Are you ready for summer? Summer starts tomorrow. It's going to be another crypto summer. It's going to be a DeFi summer. Everyone's stoked about summer, especially analysts. Analysts say that the marketplace is boring, but they think that we are still going to see some gains this summer. I don't know. I like to bring this up because obviously people talk very hand in heart about, DeFi summer, but this was supposed to be the summer of regulation. So what is it actually going to look like? Do you think that we're going to have this warm, fuzzy summer again?
Am I hopeful that we have a warm, fuzzy summer? Yes. Do I actually think we're going to have one? Maybe, which is better than no. There's a few catalysts, I think, that will be pretty interesting. If somehow, and we won't know this for a series of months, but if the BlackRock or Fidelity ETF or both get approved, it's going to be a complete and crazy parabolic Bitcoin season, I think, which then will typically cycle down to other altcoins once people take some profit off the table and so on. I also think regulation, although it will maybe stunt some of the progress in the short term in DeFi, I think it will also spark a lot of other onboarding of institutions. And who was the other one today? Deutsche Bank applied for custody license. I don't know if we're talking about that, but there's a lot of stuff happening with major banks and major incumbents now. So I think there's a chance that if we get some indication of regulatory clarity and other things, I think maybe we'll have a fun summer.
I'm sure you talked about this a little bit yesterday too, but what about inflation? Is that going to make us put more money in crypto?
Yes and no. I mean,
I hope you love my layman questions.
Yeah, I think inflation obviously is a problem, and inflation is starting to calm now. I'm not sure if it's going to stay calmed because the debt increase deal that they came up with in the US implied that they get minor but still increases on most of their budgets from 2022 numbers, which if you look at the numbers in 2022 were inflationary in a lot of ways. Even the main budget was inflationary, and we're adding a ton more debt to the debt calculator. So I'm not sure that we're done with the inflation problem yet. I'm even the Fed and Powell said they're probably going to increase rates another 0.5 point by the end of the year, most likely. I guess we'll see. But yes, if inflation continues, I mean, Bitcoin is a theoretical hedge in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas normally you would go risk off to fiat. Right now, fiat is devaluing relative to other currencies. So, yeah, I think, there's a lot of institutions that are starting to signal that they have an interest in Bitcoin. Again, BlackRock, Fidelity are both making fairly sizable investments in Grayscale and DCG, and trying to get their own ETFs, and they're buying up supply at the moment, probably fairly aggressively, which is why the price is kind of staying in a range. I think they've got a target that they're trying to adhere to. Anyways, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Could be interesting.
Well, Van de Pop, one of our beloved crypto analysts of the ecosystem, he's ready for a pop star summer. So basically, he's suggesting that market sentiment is not great, and not only because of all of the lawsuits and what have you and regulation, but also people are bored because they haven't seen massive price action lately. And so he's anticipating that a lot of people who have been moving their stables to Bitcoin and ETH are actually going to move back to things like XRP, but that we should stay away from social coins. So not my financial advice, but but if you're interested in what someone who's an actual crypto analyst has to say, we have posted that article. So
yeah, another
ready for summer, have a good summer trading strategy while you're like offline, use Buy.
Another good one actually to look at, not a good one, but another fairly well-known guy in the space, Dan Moorhead, one of the founders of Pantera Capital, posted some stuff on Twitter today also, just talking about kind of where Bitcoin's at relative to the 13-year cycles and kind of where we're at in terms of drawdown from max price. And now we're 31% up from the bottom, which to them signals maybe it's time to risk on a little bit. I don't know if he's just saying that and risked on a long time ago and is looking for people to pump his bags. Who knows? But I think we're seeing a little bit more positive sentiment, at least for BTC and ETH, in the wake of everything else having regulatory issues at the moment.
Well, that's summer. Get ready. Summer starts tomorrow. Have a summer trading strategy. Know what you're doing. Write your own manifesto. Also, Joe Kwan gets to spend summer in jail
in Montenegro, which I heard isn't very nice jail.
Yeah.
So
just for the record, when we talk about this, it is Do Kwan and also Han. What did Han do? Do you remember?
Han Chang-jun.
Han Chang-jun.
He was the CFO, I believe.
That's right.
Who was, but the reason that he's doing 4 months in jail had to do with fake passports. So this actually, he was.
You're muted on Twitter.
Oh my gosh! Sorry, Twitter friends. I don't know how it got muted, but anyways, so yeah, he's actually in jail because of fake passport, breaking a passport law. This actually has nothing to do. He actually received bail. I believe it was granted. It was revoked at one point, and then I thought it was re-granted again. I can't remember. And then he's got some. Yeah, and then I think obviously he had a fake passport that he was trying to leave the country with. So they said, you know what? We're just going to lock you up for 4 months to figure out what we're going to do, which sucks.
Apparently, they have warrants out for 5 other people who were involved in the case, and they haven't found those other people. So
who has the warrants out? Montenegro?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Sorry, South Korean court issued arrest warrants.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have very little sympathy for the way that this was managed. I think there was a lot of childish, immature decisions made. I've said this many times. Do I think they intended to defraud people? Probably not. But that's why, if you accidentally kill someone, you can still be charged with manslaughter. If you should have known better. And this is one of those cases, I think, that they should have probably known better or had advisors or something that helped them out. So I don't really feel too bad for him. It would suck to be in jail in Montenegro relative to the US. I was watching the Up Only episode with Kobe when Martin Shkreli was on there also, who just did a pretty long stint in jail for pharmaceutical fraud or some nonsense. And he was kind of joking with Do Kwon that white collar jail's not so bad. et cetera, et cetera. They were having a laugh about it, but now I guess he's getting to see the other side of jail. So anyways, okay. What's up next?
Yeah, the other side of jail. You kind of cracked me up. Okay, the next one is about MasterCard. These are kind of just the hot topics today, honestly. MasterCard is filing trademarks in the United States. This is a little bit interesting because we saw last week that they're talking about the digital euro in terms of MasterCard, because MasterCard is more widely accepted than the euro. And so they're saying that having the digital euro, they might be able to overtake something like MasterCard. And MasterCard, although I doubt this is in direct response, it's interesting to compare and contrast and say, well, actually, MasterCard will probably continue to challenge your digital CBDC or your digital fiat because they already have that framework. They already have the consumer adoption, and now they are pre-filing trademarks on blockchain technology.
So you got to remember, the MasterCard's business, the business of MasterCard itself, is actually not lending money. It's the payment infrastructure. So MasterCard just, essentially you can rent their payment infrastructure for your lending institution. So that's how these MasterCard, MasterCard credit cards and credit products work. So you have to think this is an existential risk right now to Visa, MasterCard, SWIFT, the IML, or IMF, pardon me, not IML, IMF, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank. Like there's a lot of here that stand to lose quite a bit because their whole version of rent seeking is to charge exorbitant fees and barriers to entry for these payment infrastructures. If CBDCs become a thing and institutions can just lend into that, they don't need to pay the exorbitant fees, the multi-billions of dollars per year paid to MasterCard and Visa to facilitate this when the technology exists and is mainly decentralized, way more secure, a lot more efficient, and next to free. So
just to note,
they
the trademarks, they filed 3 separate trademark actions. One is within electrical and scientific apparatus that are primarily used for research purposes. So that's kind of interesting in terms of blockchain, that they're going to be having an R&D department. I mean, I'm sure they already do, but that they're actually going to trademark and file and formally have one. And then another one is banking and financial transactions, financial valuation services, and insurance. So that's kind of interesting. See how MasterCard might move into protecting your crypto assets with their card, just like you would normally have insurance on your MasterCard already, that kind of thing. And then the other one is about being just international. So being able to have the scientific and technology that they've already trademarked and have that apply internationally as opposed to just within the States. So if you are wondering what the heck MasterCard is doing, they have a plan, which, not surprising.
we talked about this a while ago, actually, with respect to a lot of the patents that were being filed. There was like 10,000 or something already in the US, which is like the way that a lot of well-established institutions will be protecting their IP. Yeah. And I think that's interesting. It's a sign of much more to come. I think we're seeing a lot of public signaling that large institutions are JP Morgan, Goldman, Fidelity, BlackRock, Vanguard, like a lot of the largest, Franklin Templeton, a lot of the largest asset managers in the world are all publicly signaling they're starting. Deutsche Bank, MasterCard, Visa, PayPal. There's a lot of groups, SWIFT, that are, it's kind of overshadowed right now because everybody's kicking and screaming over the potential regulation in the United States. But if we put that aside for a second, this is really interesting. This is actually what people have been asking for. When enterprise, when TradFi. Well, it's here now. So we've been asking for it, and it's coming. So now everybody will complain that the incumbents are coming to the space.
Absolutely. Well, that's me. I'm complaining.
I'm complaining too in the grand scheme of things because I think it makes the barriers to entry significantly higher for innovators. But.
I don't want to be done with this topic yet. I'm really intrigued by this. So in terms of TradFi coming to DeFi, just so you know, MasterCard has already partnered as a payment processor with Binance, Gemini, and Nexo. I'm sure there are others. Like you can buy Avalanche NFTs via Shopify, which means you can buy them with MasterCard. So there could even be these like informal routes that people are taking to use this type of digital currency.
Yeah. Again, a combination of MasterCard plus CBDC, or like if they're trying to create a competitor to CBDC, both of them to me scream centralization, which is my exact criticism. So I'd love to see MasterCard build infrastructure. I'd hate to see them try to centralize the shit out of payment processing. We'll see.
So I put the MasterCard to challenge CBDC's headline. This is not the headline that's going around. This is what I want to talk about, though. JD's stuck here talking about it with me. So people have this negative sentiment about CBDCs, right? But also everyone is already carrying a MasterCard in their wallet. So do you think that people are going to have the same negative sentiment about the centralization of digital currency via MasterCard as they do from their government?
No, which is a really important point. I mean, Circle and USDC is centralized in a lot of ways. Tether is centralized in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of the stablecoin issuers are already centralized. So your on and off ramps, of course, are centralized in a lot of ways. I think this, from a MasterCard perspective, it is centralized, but it's not quite the same slippery slope risk that I see with CBDCs. Is it still a slippery slope, in my opinion? Yes. I still think the government will find a way to get the information they want from MasterCard without going through normal channels of subpoena and court orders and stuff. But there's still an extra step. They still have to convince MasterCard to play ball, whereas a CBDC, they just have unfettered access and control, which they say they won't take, but we all know how that goes. If you dangle some power in front of bureaucrats, they're going to take it. So
what about this traditional debt structure entering crypto? Do you have any thoughts or opinions on that?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Although one piece we were talking about yesterday, one piece that's just now evolving is on-chain KYC, AML, PEP compliance with two-way street of TransUnion and credit reporting. And so Quadrata is a platform that has that. I believe Nexera is another one that has some version of that. I think in order for there to be meaningful lending products from TradFi, traditional lending type products, we have to have that conduit that connects it back to real world credit. Because otherwise,
I guess that's the bigger question is, do we want to have traditional lending products from TradFi enter blockchain? This is one of the, obviously we're DeFi revolution. We all live in a utopia. I understand the challenges here and that we want TradFi to enter. But one of the things that we discuss as Go FUD Yourself is the democratization of finance and how you were able to enter this new financial system, even if you've been previously unbanked or if you did have debt or what have you. And I see this as maybe like removing that component.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword. Like from a economic perspective, DeFi in its current state is not viable long-term. The only way DeFi works right now is with additional incentivization from ecosystems and from protocols. The downside, though, is that those protocols, there's a lot of downward pressure on value for both the ecosystem and the protocol if they give out too much emissions, because people just sell them as a means of yield. And it creates consistent sell pressure. Anyways, the only way that's going to change, and the reason that the banking system, for very similar reasons, moved to the money multiplier, fractional reserve banking once upon a time. The reason they did that is to bring in more capital efficiency when lenders and borrowers were requiring more yield than what was naturally provided. Because the yield that you can actually earn on over collateralized debt products is there's no leverage at all on that. And so whether we like it or not, DeFi is not sustainable as it is. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword in the sense that we need some incumbent structures. Like, again, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a lot of good things that evolved over the last couple of centuries of modern capitalism and traditional finance. We don't want to get rid of all of that. And we have a lot of experience with how credit works and how to keep people accountable for their loans and what that means for them. Right now on blockchain, other than if you put more collateral than your outstanding loan, there's no way to enforce that stuff other than like a reputation score, which is connected to your wallet, which people might not care about. So anyways, I think this is an important step. Yeah, could be slightly problematic in some ways, but I think we also have to embrace, there is a lot of technology that is in fact useful from a TradFi perspective. And so we just want to make sure that we're not blanket opposed to any of that stuff coming in to support the growth of the ecosystem. Because I think until we can build different products that have different economic structures and or move into under collateralized lending or collateralizing real world assets for lending, similar to traditional loans, like a mortgage or a car loan or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We will still see this challenge with profitability. So anyway, bit of a tangent, but here we are.
No, I think it was good comments to make and kind of what I was looking for. It's important to understand how something like MasterCard having a trademark in the blockchain ecosystem is actually going to impact us. On that note, thinking about how TradFi works and how crypto works, what the sweet heck is Crypto.com doing and why are people mad about it?
Yeah, so they have an internal prop trading firm, which isn't really surprising because in an unregulated environment, there's a lot of money to be made prop trading. They're not the only ones to do this. They're just the ones right now that are being drugged.
Ones in the news.
Yeah. But Binance has been criticized, and there's been a lot of speculation that Binance has been doing this for years. We know it's true to a certain extent. There's been leaked documents and so on that they provide stop data and limit data to market makers in the Binance ecosystem beyond just their internal prop trading. Effectively, what this means is, and they don't have verifiable proof of this yet. This is just a claim, so that's the caveat here. But the idea is that these prop traders have asymmetrical information to the rest of traders. They can see where everybody's stops are. They can see where limit orders are, whether it's bot limit orders or real user limit orders, which are obviously not algorithmic, so they can count on them being there if they do certain things in the markets. It's really an unfair advantage. It's in fact highly illegal in regulated markets, especially if things are securities. So this is a big problem, making significant revenue source by counter trading effectively your users. Alameda and FTX were accused of this to a very, very, very significant extent. Again, they were also providing this data to market makers. At least they're being accused of that. Again, we'll see.
The other thing that's interesting here is Crypto.com stated that this is not a controversial practice. But if people are calling you out on it, then and you were required to make a comment, then you already know that it's controversial practice.
Yeah, it's maybe not controversial in the sense that all of these kind of unregulated centralized entities were doing it. But that doesn't make it okay. It is controversial. It's just, it was happening and we had no recourse. Now it's happening. We know about it. And in the wake of this, a lot of these lawsuits and regulation related items, I think now it's just coming to light that it's a problem. So stop doing it. In my opinion.
Okay, let's end on this fun note about the Canadian Bitcoin conference.
We don't do fun here at FUD.
Yeah, let's talk about FUD. So the first ever Canadian Bitcoin conference took place in Toronto, I think just over this weekend. Kind of cool. We're seeing ETH Toronto. We're seeing the Blockchain Futurists conference come out of Toronto. I've seen a few things pop up in Calgary, but Toronto is definitely being the hub for this right now. And we do have quite a few. I mean, there's a pretty big crypto tech sector. I mean, Berachain is out of Toronto. Quite a few people have offices in downtown Toronto. So it makes sense that this is where this is going. But we have
financial hub of Canada too. So I mean,
I guess that's important. Yeah. You think they would have created their own separate crypto financial hub if they didn't want to be regulated the same way. Anyway, what I think is interesting about this is, as you've heard us talk about, crypto is pretty regulated in Canada already. They already decided that it's part of our capital gains. They've already put in place, you had 30 days to comply. We've seen mergers and acquisitions. This is it's not exactly a fun, innovative space to play, but now that things have been in place for a few months, it seems as though people are trying to find ways to still work within those systems and decide what they're going to do. So kind of cool to see. There were a lot of really interesting products that weren't necessarily launched or announced, but had a cool marketing spin, which is my jam. But it's important to note that there were a couple different wallets that took the stage. So Bull Bitcoin had a new mobile wallet that's integrated with their exchange. But it's nice to see more mobile options. I love mobile options. I think that does get us a lot of onboarding in terms of crossing that chasm. And then Block launched its beta testing for its self-custody Bitcoin wallet. Bitcoin's still pretty popular here. We still have Bitcoin ATMs in Edmonton that people go and pay for their coffee with their Bitcoin. It's kind of weird, wacky. At the one place you can do that in Edmonton. But the Bitcoin ATM's there.
But the vast majority of altcoins, if not all of them, I'm not sure about ETH and Bitcoin, but I'm pretty sure everything else is considered a security. So this is, again, I've been saying this about regulation. When this first happened, we saw Binance pull out. We saw Bitfinex pull out of Canada. We saw Gate pull out. We saw Huobi, KuCoin, a lot of these exchanges that, the knee jerk is to pull out. a lot of smaller, platforms that were being built, like you said, were either, sucked up via roll-ups or M&A. But now that the dust has settled a little bit, that the path to compliance is becoming a little bit more clear, I think we're going to see more of this. And I suspect this will happen everywhere else where regulations are imposed. MiCA will probably see something very similar in the EU for the next little bit. There'll be a bunch of companies that just don't know how to respond, so they just bail. There's a few that'll immediately do it to try to get first mover advantage, and then we'll see the bulk of kind of your middle of the curve adoption continue in a few months, I think, or into 24.
So there were three like pretty cool things pretty neat things that happened at this conference. So one, they got Stephen Livera, who talked about self-custody and really talked about shitcoin casinos on stage. So that's kind of interesting within the Canadian landscape. Also, big name to have at a conference in Canada. That's kind of fun. And then one that I thought was cool is Decentral, who works in Bitcoin miners. So they'll help you host. They fix hardware. They do all kinds of stuff. They did a fun marketing spin called DIY Bitcoin mining. And they ran a few workshops on how you might start your own Bitcoin mine in your household and what that would look like. And I just like the marketing spin of DIY Bitcoin mining, because for those who, mine themselves at home, they know that it's, essentially a DIY operation, and anyone who started it at any time had to start it themselves at some point. But I like this idea of making it sound grassroots, making it sound like something cutesy that you can do with your kids. Like you can build a birdhouse and then you can build a Bitcoin mine.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's still arguably pretty compelling reasons to spin up mining. It's just not as wildly profitable as it once was. But definitely interesting. All right.
Then the final one.
Okay.
It's really quick. People are losing their minds about it. It's in the news. Panties for Bitcoin. So this group has been making panties that say like hodl and stuff on them, and they want to be known as like the underwear supplier for Bitcoin. And so they were at Bitcoin Miami. This is their booth from Bitcoin Miami, but they're in the news with all of these things that are like lucrative panties, like incredible panties, like wild booth, never seen before. And it's just fucking merch. So I don't know. Maybe I'll order some and tell you if they're fancy or not. But,
which is kind of hilarious. I didn't see the brief for that, so you caught me off guard a little bit.
Get it? The brief?
I didn't see it.
No, the brief, like your panties. All right, that's
it.
I'm out.
Holy shit. Okay, so for all of you,
get out of here.
For all of you on Twitter Spaces, live show every weekday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Most of the time, it's Kara and I. The odd time when she's off gallivanting, I'll have a guest. When I'm away, it's because I'm working really hard, not gallivanting.
Oh, you don't gallivant? Okay.
Never. No, zero gallivanting for me. Anyways, like, share, subscribe, help us get the word out. It's
if
good
you're
to
on
see
Twitter Spaces right now, move over to the Evmos community call.
Yeah, Evie, Ocean Block, Nikki, everybody else, thank you all for joining. I am headed to another Spaces, so as she said, if you're bored, Evmos community call, I'll be on that. Otherwise, Kiara,
go FUD yourself.
Go FUD yourself. Later.